Chapter 1. This is what you get. The bullet dislodges itself from the wall and flies backwards, out of it. Fragments of shattered metal coalesce, becoming one again. The deformed, flattened shape repairs itself, whole, firmer, more conical. Ahead of it, the hole in the wall heals. Pieces of brick and plaster implode back into a smooth hole. The bullet's tumbling slows and stops. It travels backwards now, the indented arse end of it moving in a straight line trajectory. Droplets of red spray combine back into the bullet, coating it with a crimson sheen. Gobbets of flesh follow, traumatized, torn and ragged. A stray white tooth, fragments of scalp and hair join it, along with fatty lumps of what must be brain tissue. The bullet moves backwards, through shards of defragmenting bone, and reverses, quickly, into the rear of the skull. The flesh ripples like a liquid. The skin flexes across the surface of the head like the beat of a drum recorded in slow motion. The bullet emerges, again, backwards, through a wall of smiling, smarmy, grinning porcelain teeth. The slug retreats from that self-satisfied, glossy face. It flies true now, unsullied, pristine, further and further. It starts to glow red with the residual heat, lit by the explosion behind it, that winds itself in and shrinks, dimming the room from its bright light. It sucks back into the pipe of the gun, and thrusts itself backwards into the cartridge, nesting itself snugly into place, lodging itself into the magazine and cuddling up snugly to its siblings, waiting to be called into life. The gunman's face is almost serene as his finger lifts from the trigger and he sits back down, vanishing into a sea of shocked and amused-looking faces. Just another one in the crowd. Chapter 2. Banned from the pubs. You'd think, and you'd be wrong, that a pub was a pub was a pub. Somewhere for a quiet drink and a microwaved Sunday roast with disappointingly flat Yorkshire puddings a couple of times a month. That was much more true these days than it used to be, what with your pretentious restaurant gastropubs at one end and the endless parade of family-friendly pseudo-inns on the other. Even with all that dilution going on, there was still more than a few pubs that fulfilled the role of a special retreat, a meeting place, a refuge for the people who drank there. They were just relics of a bygone age, harder and harder to find with every passing year. The Crown was one of the misfits that lingered. A pub could be an informal clubhouse of sorts. Different pubs served as home bases for different kinds of people. There were lawyer pubs and cricketer pubs, there were businessmen's pubs, working men's pubs, pubs for travellers and pubs for policemen. There were pubs where the ageing and decrepit hooligans of the old East End gangs gathered together and reminisced about the good old days, trading stories of the times when they stabbed and shot each other, stepped out on the town with Lulu and were good to their mums. There were pubs where old Irishmen go to die, drowning themselves drink by drink at the end of the bar. Still other pubs came to prominence when a particular pop culture movement is in its prime. They became the hangouts for kids as they came of age, where they could drink and fuck and usually got too drunk to fuck. A place where they could be together, listen to their music, preen their feathers and strut their stuff. Kids met up in them before the clubs opened and reconvened there at stupid o'clock after the clubs shut, if the place had a late license. The Crown was a pub for punks. It had had a lax attitude to licensing laws for decades. Like most pop pubs, it had become a bubble in time. It froze the youth culture in stylistic amber. It kept the posters, accumulated the stories in layers like the graffiti. Clientele got older, but they dressed the same, and they kept on coming, even if they didn't go clubbing afterwards. The pub became a legend, synonymous with the movement that spawned it, a tourist site, a nostalgia factory. Then the wannabes started turning up in droves, hoping to become part of the legend, to have its aura rub off on them. Later still, they came to gawk at the weirdos. They treated the place like a zoo. That just gave the old guard more of a sense of legitimacy in themselves, along with people to sneer at in a superior manner. Sneering at others, the fakers, the newbies, always made them feel better. They made the scene that others aped, the place they wanted to be part of, the gatekeepers of genuine cool. Some of these pubs were famous, like the Dev. Others stayed a little more quiet, a little more exclusive. The Crown was the latter. There were something like 50 pubs around Greater London called the Crown. This particular Crown was a shabby, run-down place that stank of cigarette smoke even 5 or more years after the ban had been put into place. The walls inside were layered with old posters going right the way back to the heady days of the 70s. Layers of mystery filth and the names of long-forgotten bands preserved in geological strata of sellotape, blue tack, glue and paper. It all made some corners look like a papier-mâché wasp's nest. The Crown's hard angles had been worn smooth by the intensity of its history. It was dark and dingy, and legend had it that the words "fuck you" were scribbled on the wall of the men's toilets, and that they'd been put there by Sid Vicious. Nobody really knew if that was true or not, but the obscenity had been covered with perspex to preserve it for posterity, just in case. People braved the inch-deep piss and the cracked and fungal blooming tiles just to see it. One of London's hidden secret treasures, a dead man's swear word. The jukebox only played punk, and these days that was mostly best-of collections. Even CDs wore out over time, or got broken by one means or another. After an initial orgy of reissuing, it had gotten harder to get what they wanted stocked in that neon plastic case. The vinyl had long since worn smooth and been thrown away, some of it nailed to the wall for decoration. It was a sad end for old classics and pressings nobody remembered. A TV sat up against the back wall, but it was old and small, not even an LCD flat screen. One of the colour guns was knackered. The sound was never turned up. Regardless of that, the screen retained its hypnotic effect, and plenty of people couldn't resist its flickering allure. They stared into it like moths drawn to a flame, sipping their drinks and gazing at programs they would never otherwise glance at. Tonight it was flashing green shifted images of police lines and protest. The little screen was swollen with pictures of shouting youth and baton charges, of kettling and thrown stones. It had become a sight so familiar that most people no longer gave a shit or paid much attention to it. Just another protest, just another riot. The news might just as well have been reporting on paint drying for all the attention people paid. It all played out so predictably. Inevitable images flickered past. The black-masked thug kicking in the window of a McDonald's, the crying women with spray-coloured rainbow hair pouring water in their eyes after a vicious pepper spraying. Street violence and howls of protest had become a sad little stereotype, a drinking game, a bingo card. It's so fucking pointless. Derek stabbed a big fat sausage finger at the screen, nearly knocking his pint over on the bar. Same fucking charade every fucking time. What does it accomplish? Nothing. Derek was a big guy, shaven-headed except for a short little curly mohawk. He was broad-shouldered and built big. You'd call him obese, but under the fat was a lot of muscle. When he got pissed off at something, you tended to notice. His face screwed up into a mass of dark wrinkles like an angry baby. What about the civil rights movement? Tim was a weekend warrior these days. Didn't look too good to the PTA when they saw your tattoos or went looking you up on the internet. They might find out what you'd gotten up to in your youth, and that was frequently embarrassing. He had to be respectable, careful, beyond reproach. Even as desperate as they were for anyone who still wanted to teach, he'd get thrown under a bus in a moment if he did the wrong thing. It was hard for him. He was a smart-ass with a mouth that got him into trouble. Every day was a triumph of restraint. He was thinner than the rest, save for a small pot belly. Normal hair down to his ears, scraggly beard. He was nobody special. Hidden away under the shirt and blue jeans were a mess of tattoos, all small, no theme, nothing to bind them together except his whims and his fancies. That's fucking America, you twat waffle. You think just 'cause I'm black I know about all that? What about here then? We've had protests and riots and what have you since forever. When has it ever really made a difference, huh? When? Derek was puffed up with indignation and anger, and not about to back down that easily. Poll tax riots? Arguably they made a difference. Took Thatcher down even. Tim sipped from his pint and turned his head a moment, hearing disturbance at the bar, but it wasn't really anything much worth worrying about. It was just raised voices. Trol stuck his oar in then, the third man in this little knot of friends. Nah, mate, that was just opportunism. Our own party wanted shot of her. That was an excuse, that's all. Just a convenient one for us. Not that anyone since has been much better. Trol was another big guy, but not as big as Derek. Stockiness turning to fat, an arm-swinging pit bull of a man, with a head shaven bald. He could almost pass for homeless, but he wasn't. His tats looked cheaper, but there was an air of authenticity to them, as though he was a gypsy or an ex-prisoner. Trol was as close to the real deal as you could still get, and that carried a certain amount of arrogance, justified or not, with it. Christ's sake, you lot. Janice, the barmaid, pierced and painted, and sour as snorting a line of coke cut with washing powder, dirty blonde turning to grey in streaks, heavy ringed fingers that clinked against the inside of the glass as she wiped it clean. How many years have you stupid bastards been coming here having the same bloody conversation? At least those kids out there are doing something, even if it's pointless. She hooked her bony thumb towards the flickering telly. Yeah, getting their heads pounded in. And accomplishing what exactly? Headlines calling them hooligans and rioters? Nobody shedding a tear when one of them gets brain damaged or killed? Everyone will be blaming them for it in a day or two. Seen it all before. Too fucking often. Derek looked over his shoulder. The fuss further down the bar was getting louder and more worthy of attention as time went on. And I suppose sitting here drinking and bitching is going to accomplish something. Hold up, let me deal with this. Janice strutted down the bar like a raptor edging along its perch. Her piercing shriek cut over the jangling guitar of the Damned booming out of the jukebox, a voice well used to making itself heard. Who the fuck do you think you are, coming in my pub and causing a stink? You're under fucking age, so you don't get fucking served. I've got a tattoo on my arse older than you, and a fucking manky Green Day t-shirt doesn't make you one of us. Get the fuck out or I'll have Terry throw you out on your ear. Her voice faded away as she moved further on down, a whirlwind of indignation. 2 inviolate rules to the Crown. You didn't fuck with Janice, and you didn't fuck Janice. The 3 men picked up their drinks and moved to a table further away from the fuss. It wouldn't do to get in the way when Janice was going thermonuclear. It was quieter back here, enfolded in a womb of splintery wood and spilled beer. Derek slid into his seat, taking up one whole side, while Tim and Trol shared the other, squeezing in. Tim looked across the table. I guess you know better than most, you've seen more of it, and more recently than we have. He took another pull on his pint and leaned back, staring up and out into empty space while he thought things over. Next to him, Trol piped up. Riots, yeah, but protests. I reckon I've seen more of that. Not one-upping you guys or anything, but a riot and a protest are different things. You 2 weren't respectable, not me. He gave him his big, amphetamine-scarred grin. And you never let us forget it. Tim drove an elbow into Troll's side. Riots are different, he's not wrong there. Derek slumped forward over the table and twined his fingers together. But they're also the same thing at some level. When you get all the way down into it, a riot's just a big, fucking, inarticulate protest, and all they can think to do is smash shit, burn shit, and steal shit like a bunch of cunt biscuits. Tim nodded. Fucking inarticulate, eh? There's irony for you. But look, there's no ideology anymore, is there? I'm not saying it's always a good thing to have an ideology. Look at religion, look at Cambodia, but we're down to arguing over the fine details of a single option. Neoliberal capitalism. Like we were saying, nothing seems to make any real difference, so why even bother to try? Why take to the streets and risk getting brained if it's all for no good purpose? He shrugged again, and gave a long, low breath out through his nostrils. Trol arched a questioning eyebrow up his deep-lined forehead. Alright, so it doesn't make any difference whether you do something or not, but, hear me out, isn't that just as much of a reason to just bloody do it anyway? If nothing you do makes any fucking difference either way, doesn't that free you up to do anything? Anything at all? Suppose that's one way to look at it. Bit nihilistic though, innit? Tim shook his head and hung it down low. I mean, that sounds like another form of defeat to me. Admitting there's no hope and giving up. Duh. Punk. Anarchy and nihilism and no more of that change the world crap the hippies were spewing. Burn it down, start again, yeah? Best we can hope for. Trol gave another laugh. Come on guys, Janice is right. We're just sitting here bitching and accomplishing fuck all. You 2 did go all respectable on me, and that's fair enough, you know. Every choice is valid, and it's not like my life is a bed of roses by any measure. Still, we're all in our bloody 50s now, an age I never thought I'd even get to. If we were ever going to make our mark and actually do anything, make a difference, we ain't got much time left to do it in. I might have stayed an activist, but honestly, I've made no more mark on the world than either of you 2 have, and you ain't been trying. Hey, I have made my mark. Derek stabbed a thumb in his chest. How many albums have I worked on? How many radio shows have I been involved in? My name's on a lot of great stuff out there. I turned that shitty bass playing of mine into a proper music career. That left a legacy. And I've taught kids since I straightened myself out, 20 or 30 years worth. That's got to be worth something, hasn't it? My mark in all those classes, making them think, teaching them to look at the world, that has to have some significance. Yeah, mate, it does. Think about it, though. Troll turned his head to look at Derek. Do kids even buy albums anymore, or do they just listen to any old crap on the internet on a whim? When was the last time you heard a song that really, really meant something other than I want money and bitches? A song like that actually made the big time. He switched to Tim then. Teaching? When did you last get to set the curriculum, teach what you wanted to, or teach what you thought they actually needed to know in life? When did you last get any fucking respect? Or get to teach the things that you think are important, rather than some fish-faced dipshit who went to Eton? Troll shook his head again harder, and pointed to Derek. What kind of music you working on now anyway? Oh, fucking hip-hop and R&B shit, tits and ass and bling, Derek grimaced. And Tim, what about the teaching? Troll's face softened a bit. Tim was a sensitive soul and really invested in what he did. It might be best to be a bit more gentle with him. You're right, mate, it's bollocks. Every fucking government treats us like a football, and now they've handed the keys over to crazy religious nuts to start their own schools. I get less say every bloody year. They could give the job to a Teddy Ruxpin and nobody would notice the difference. Was that cassette-playing bear thing? Troll frowned. Or was that Furby? Tim rolled his eyes and threw up his hands. The fucking bear. Look, it doesn't matter. Point is, I don't get to be a teacher, just a mouthpiece. Troll brought the side of his fist down on his palm. So then, why aren't we out there with those kids on the box, eh? Raising a fuss, making some noise? If it makes no bloody difference either way, I think I'd rather be honest about how I feel, and I'd rather do something about it, even if it's pointless and stupid. Take a swing, you know? Not like our heroes ever did though, really, is it? Tim sighed, looking more and more depressed. I mean, Joe Biafra granted, but he's a lot more noise than actual accomplishment. Strummer, yeah, but small-scale stuff. More of an inspiration than a doer. Then look at the Pistols. Fucking boy band. Troll stuck out his tongue, teasing as Tim frowned and carried on. Comeback gigs, whenever they run out of cash. And Johnny Rotten selling fucking butter on the telly. What's all that about, eh? I mean, he's still a crazy sod for what that's worth, but a sellout nonetheless, and a shameless one about it. No more heroes, right? You're not wrong. Derek echoed Tim's sigh and drained the last of his pint. Even fucking Bono's done more, and he's a pretentious, stuck-up cockwhistle. Politics and causes turn so many bands to shit, though, not just punk. Look at Rage Against the Machine. Or any Christian rock band, ever. Tim laughed bitterly, and they all shared a moment of aging hopelessness at the state of the world. I dunno. The Beatles were better when they went all spiritual. Derek sucked at one cheek, as he thought. No, mate, that was the drugs. Troll gave another snorting laugh. I should know, if anyone does. Silence fell over the table then, interrupted only by the Green Day Kid being slung out of the door bodily by Terry, his screaming and swearing girlfriend shouting about calling the police as she trailed in his trajectory like the mascara streaked tail of a comet. My round, I think. Tim stood up, edged his way around the table and shuffled over to the bar. It was going to be one of those nights, but it felt different. Something had shifted, changed. A fault line had jumped a couple of meters.